Today I'm here with Livs.
Hello!
She is a regular guest on my channel.
Well, you know, twice.
And today she's here for her Shakespeare expertise. No pressure or anything.
No pressure whatsoever. I want to just say though that I didn't study Shakespeare or anything at all. I have a mum who was an actress and I grew up going to the theatre a lot in London, and I fell in love with Shakespeare at a very early age and kind of read the kids' versions of his stories and then graduated up to reading the plays themselves. Yeah, I'm not an expert by any means, she's lying.
I'm basically the Shakespeare noob. I made a video with Rosianna where she gave me a list of 10 Shakespeare plays that she thought I would enjoy. I have been going through them very slowly. This is only the second video, but it's quite an exciting one because I went to see this one at the Globe and I've read it, and we've watched 2 film adaptations.
Yes. The play we're talking about today is my favourite, Much Ado About Nothing. Yay! Much Ado is set in Messina in Italy. For me it's about Benedict and Beatrice, who are, I would say, the 2 main characters in it. Beatrice is like feisty and witty and wonderful. We'll talk about her probably a bit later. Benedict is her counterpart as a male.
It starts off with her cousin and Benedict's friend Claudio. They're coming back from war and they instantly sort of fall in love.
Exactly.
And so that seems to be initially the main plot. You're like, oh, it's going to be about them falling in love, but it happens really quickly and it happens pretty straightforward. And you're like, hold on, there must be something else.
Don Pedro, who is kind of the royalty from Aragon who's coming to visit this count who's Hero's father, you know, they just basically decide to have a bit of fun and to try and convince Benedict that Beatrice is in love with him and Beatrice that Benedict is in love with her, because these two have got kind of a verbal warfare going on.
And also they're both convinced that they'll never get married.
Oh yeah, this is the other thing. They both, there's no one who is ever right for them. No. It's, you know, they're disdainful about it, they're very funny about it. It's almost like they're kind of, like they're known for it and so they make it a big joke.
It's the big thing. There's no man good enough for me, I will never find a husband.
Yeah, exactly.
There's like an evil side plot
Don John.
to sort of sabotage the original marriage. Yeah. Lots of intrigue, but also just really, really funny.
And typical kind of Shakespearean misidentities. Sometimes it's funny and sometimes it can ruin people's lives, and you know, that's just all part and parcel of life.
The thing that I really noticed when I saw it at the Globe, the big thing about it is the physical humor. It's like literally Tom and Jerry on your tiptoes walking from pillar to pillar. It's really obvious that he's not hiding very well, but it's so funny. And at the Globe they did this thing where he was hiding behind some boxes of oranges, and at the end he stumbles and all the oranges roll over the stage into the audience. There is lots of audience interaction, especially with Benedict.
Oh really?
When he's talking about like, oh, I want my lady to be blonde or brunette, and then he did or rich, and he pointed at the box where the rich people used to sit, and I was like, I get that.
To play that you have to have the most incredible comic timing, and it lends itself so well to this kind of physical comedy. There's a lot of references in the text, and there's this awareness, you know, Benedict and Beatrice, when they're overhearing their friends, you know, to try to trick them. They don't think they're being watched at all, but there's this real knowingness about the text.
You know that the people talking know that they're being overheard because it's on purpose. Yeah. The bit with Beatrice is so good because there's always some laundry involved, and so they put up a washing line and they had all these like wet clothes.
No.
And so she was like hiding behind them, like pulling it down or like going under it, and the best thing is at the end she hides on the stairs going up to the stage, and the 2 people that are talking about her grab their giant tub of water and walk to the edge of the stage and pour it all over her. It's so good.
It's freezing.
Also, everyone in the crowd was like, what?
It is really joyous, and it's what, you know, if we're going to talk about the films as well, which we are, I really love about the Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson adaptation.
Yeah, that's the one from like 93.
Yeah, and Kenneth Branagh, like he did all of these Shakespearean adaptations.
So Kenneth is Professor Lockhart in Harry Potter, which is how I knew him.
My mum had a bit of a weird thing in that we grew up on Disney, but also period adaptations of things because she knew we liked the dresses. So the Emma Thompson Sensibility, that was like a childhood film of mine. The Jennifer Ely Colin Firth Pride and Prejudice, and this Much Ado as well.
That one's, it's very Italian.
It's beautiful.
It's very, compared to the Joss Whedon one, which is the other one we watched, this one is so rambunctious and it's fun, and they're laughing, and the actors in it laugh like the crowd at a live performance does, so you know it's like, oh, that was a funny bit, that was a funny bit.
That's the thing, and I think he's a real Shakespearean expert, Kenneth Branagh, and I think he directed it as well as starring as Benedict in it as well. And him and Emma Thompson were actually married at the time of making it, so they play. There we go. So they played Benedict and Beatrice, and Kate Beckinsale is in it. It's her first ever performance. She just finished at Oxford when she was in it, and Denzel Washington and Keanu Reeves pop up, and it's all a bit hilarious.
You're watching it and you're like, why are all these people in this film?
But it's joyful, and it is set kind of, I would say, probably like 18th,
Yeah,
19th
it's like,
century.
yeah, it's definitely older. It's like bodices. And...
Yeah, exactly. A lot of white linen everywhere, and like it's really, really fun. And it's two of the UK's best actors, I would say.
It's amazing.
Like acting and doing this dialogue together. And I did actually find when I watched the Joss Whedon adaptation, which filmed in 2011, was it?
It's very recent, and it's in black and white,
which is it's beautiful as well.
And the setup of it seems to be like mob family, sort of like wealthy, potentially criminal family, I guess.
Yeah, or senators.
Police watching them, and there's like security guards. Yeah, like some sort of important family.
Yeah, exactly. But I did actually find when I watched it, and some of the lines and some of the physical comedy, I genuinely felt like they'd obviously seen the Branagh adaptation and just couldn't quite forget it. Both Beatrices were very similar, I think.
So I have never really watched several Shakespeare adaptations where they used the original text or parts of the original text. There was one bit, because I watched them both in a row, it was very easy to compare, and I was like, oh, I remember that line was really funny in the other film, and it's really serious in this one, and it really shows you how you can interpret Shakespeare in so many different ways. Like every sentence you can, you know, give it your own twist to it.
Exactly, and I think with the Branagh one, like Emma Thompson is hilarious in it all the time. So when Beatrice does have quite dramatic moments, there's an amazing speech, which is like Beatrice's "If I Were a Man" speech, and it's amazing. But when Emma Thompson does that, because she's been so kind of light and gay and fun throughout the entire thing, it's got even more of a meaning.
Right.
Whereas I think with the Joss Whedon one, there was a different level of subtlety put on that. It was quite American melodramatic in a way, I think. Some of the things.
And for that one, when the physical comedy comes in, it's extra funny because you don't expect it to happen. I thought so, because there's a bit where he's like rolling around in front of the window, like holding a tree branch over his
that
head.
was quite funny. I think you're right, actually. And the interesting other one is that because they set it in modern times, they contextualise Beatrice and Benedict's relationship. And this is something I have opinions about. In that, you have no idea in the book why Beatrice and Benedict have this kind of war with words, and everyone knows they have it, and it's obviously, you know, whenever they've met in the past, it's like this thing, and in my head it's always been that they like being the centre of attention, they're used to being the kind of the intellectual clown, things like that, and they both have quite dogmatic opinions about the opposite sex, and they won't deviate from them. In the Joss Whedon one, it begins with they've obviously had a one-night stand and he just leaves, and she's pretending to be asleep, and you can see that she's really hurt. So
they even put in a flashback when she's doing a certain sentence. They're like,
because it is a play that has got, for a modern audience, problems when it comes to its portrayal of women and things like that.
And things like, oh, you're no longer a virgin. Well, that's a waste.
The Hey Nonny Nonny song is basically all about women, let your man go off and be unfaithful and everything, and just let them go and just sing Hey Nonny Nonny about it. And what's interesting in the Branagh version, that's used when they're all kind of lying about in the sun as though they've got a musical entertainment happening because it's set in the past. Whereas in the Joss Whedon one that's set in modern day, they've put that as background music, almost like a soundtrack. The fact that I knew that this play had these kind of dodgy portrayals of women, and then they make Beatrice basically out to be a bitter, rejected woman, and that's why she hates Benedict so much, because he walked out after a one-night stand. That really annoyed me. I way preferred it that they were just two people who, because they're quite competitive about their verbal wits, didn't get on.
Then they might have been like that for forever.
Exactly.
Like, since childhood.
Exactly.
So I was reading the Wikipedia article. And I'm sure you know this already, but the meaning of the title. Much Ado About Nothing. Do you know what the double joke is there?
It's something to do with gossip, isn't it?
Yes, it's Much Ado About Noting, which is pronounced the same at the time as nothing, and that means like gossip.
This makes so much sense.
I know, it's really great. I was like, I had no idea.
Every kind of thing that drives the plot forward is because of a misheard piece of information or a misattributed something.
And this is so much like, because the only other video I've done about Shakespeare so far is Twelfth Night.
Oh my god,
which obviously has a very similar
And you
theme
need to do like comedy of errors, and it's basically all over the same again.
Things that occurred to me while reading this that I then had to Google. Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, can see that.
Benedict and Beatrice, like the way they are constantly like going off each other and like, oh, we're not interested, but we're gonna just chat a lot anyway. Just really reminded me of Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth.
But also the loyalty that Benedict has to Claudio. And that Beatrice
they both
has
have like
Hero.
a sidekick.
It's the Jane of Bingley.
Because they have that like really adorable plot going on in the background that's sabotaged by someone. I did some Googling, and some people said that potentially Jane Austen was a little bit inspired by it, but I don't know, you know, how correct those sources are.
I can see that now.
That was an interesting comparison.
I like that.
One of my favourite things is when I'm watching a Shakespeare play and I'm like, that is a Mumford Sons lyric. And so for this one, it was Man is a Giddy Thing. Well, Sigh No More, obviously, is part of it as well.
And when I was at school, we had this amazing teacher who loved Shakespeare, and we had a poster on the classroom wall that said like, if you are green with envy, you are a Shakespeare quote, if you are, and it had all of these things, and so I really loved it, but actually I'd never got the Sign No More. I think I have, but Man is a Giddy Thing I've never picked up on.
We're gonna look at some of the famous quotes from
that's my favourite.
There's a messenger who's talking to Beatrice about Benedict, and he says, I can see he's not in your good books. And then she says, no, and if he were, I would burn my library. Which
It's
I really
so good.
enjoyed.
And I would rather hear a dog bark than a man swear he loves me. I should add that when I was younger, I was obsessed with Emma Thompson, with my obsession with Shakespeare. So, I mean, that I think probably the reason why this play is my absolute favourite is because of that.
Is it that and Sense and Sensibility?
Oh.
I really find reading it is still quite tricky, and I have to do the thing where I saw it performed first, and then I was watching the Joss Whedon one and reading along with it.
Yeah.
My favourite thing is watch for 15 minutes, read up to that point, watch for 15 minutes, read up to that point.
A lot of people think when they're reading Shakespeare that you won't understand it all, and that you can go for pages with Shakespeare when they're just having a chat about the weather, and you're like, is there a joke?
Yeah,
and I think
am I missing something?
You can get paranoid that you're missing a double reference or something like that, and there's going to be loads that you will, because loads of the double
you'll have
references,
to read it like 20 times to get all of them.
But also some have just fallen so out of context that it doesn't matter if you don't at all. And I think the thing with Shakespeare is when you start reading in the rhythm and things, and if you've got, you know, all good, you know, editions of him will have enough notes in the background to help you. If you miss that he put that word there because it could mean two things and oh, isn't that funny and clever, it doesn't matter. It does not matter whatsoever.
I think as long as you've got a general gist of like who's being tricked, what's the funny thing, then you're all right. I love a good like was that a dick joke? Was that? I think it was. Okay.
There's one in Romeo and Juliet that I'll never forget. We all clicked reading it in class when we were about 14, and it was, is thy pump well flowered? I
think Benedict said something about hanging up his bugle.
Yeah.
It's funny because in the Kenneth version, he's just like, my bugle. Favorite moment for me is when they've basically already tricked Benedict. He's overheard that like Beatrice apparently loves him, which she doesn't.
Yeah.
And he's in the garden and he's just like, oh, can it be true?
Yeah.
Like my heart is singing. And then they ask Beatrice to go get him in for food.
Yeah.
And so she's like walking towards him really angrily, and he's like, ooh, I do spy a sign of love in her.
So good. I think my favourite moment, always will be, can read it forever, is the first meeting between Benedict and Beatrice. Just because it
dialogue.
is, and it ends with this, you always end with a Jade's trick, I know you of old, that Beatrice says, which for some, like, interestingly in the Joss Whedon version and the Kenneth Branagh version, they both play in a really similar way, which is, it's not a funny line, and it's after this quick, really quick dialogue that's very funny, about parrots and tongues and, you know, stuff like that. It's just this one thing, and it just adds this, it's when I think you see, you know, they're not these light, quippy people.
Right, it's actually like a deeper,
they're not the class clowns, and that their characters are actually deeper as well, that something has gone too far, something hurts, and it's...
You're constantly making jokes and then one person goes slightly too far. Okay, so that's probably it. That was a pretty thorough discussion. We'll probably keep chatting about it for a while.
It's so good.
I hope that you guys enjoyed this, whether you've read Much Ado or whether you haven't. Go watch some of the adaptations, go read it. Yeah. If you have to study it for homework, then you're in luck.
It's true.
Let me know what your favourite quote is. Yeah. We'd love to hear.
Or which play you find like got you into reading Shakespeare or something, because this one was my one. I think it's a great, almost like beginner's play. If you're wanting to look into reading Shakespeare, I think it's a really good place to start. This or A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Liz doesn't have a YouTube channel, but I'll put her Twitter in the description so you can have a chat with her if you want.
I love chatting.
And I'm sure she'll be back for more Shakespeare videos.
Hopefully, yeah, it's lovely to be here.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Doei!